back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And we once again have Kevin with us, and he's giving us some more on the GLAGG saga, about him and his Sasquatch buddy. And last time we talked about how the whole situation began, and we're going to pick it up from that first year still and cover all of the most memorable, important, or otherwise needful parts of the first year for you folks to listen to. And I told Kev the first thing that we need to do is give everybody a good description of what GLAGG looked like when you first met him, and we're feeding them pieces of deer around the campfire.
All right. Just take right up where we left off.
Yeah.
It was deer. The elk was the very first one I saw. That was.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Closest thing I can explain is a chimpanzee, just bigger. Like I said, he's a little bit bigger than I was at that time, but with some human features, but like a chimpanzee.
Well, by the way, we sort of know it's watched. They get more massive and fill out a lot more as they get bigger, just like humans do. I think what people are really interested in is what was his hair color, what was his skin color, what was his eye color, what his facial features look like.
Okay, to start with the first one, the hair was almost black, but hints of still that auburn color. It turned like more into the dark brown as he got older, and eyes always black, or dark. That's where, with him being my buddy, not just something that's, it's something I never focused on after that initial time, that introduction, if you can call it that. But, a hooded nose looked like, your typical boxer. I hate to sound like a broken record like everybody else, but that's exactly what it looked like, a big old huge flat nose that had been punched more than once.
Right.
But not, it's like a human nose that had been broken, not a primate nose. Right. And
so you like maybe more like the nose you would see on like somebody Aboriginal Australian or something like that, where they got a big wide flat nose.
Yes, and skin color kind of charcoal, a little bit darker gray, but not a light gray, but not black either. Kind of ashen, is that the proper term? Yeah. And round head, not conical. Never. All the ones that I've seen have never been conical, like a lot, I guess, of your typical squatches. They've always been more round from the ones that I've seen.
There's me and some of the other people that are investigating this think that there's more than one kind across the country, and I'm fairly sure of it. So, the ones with the rounder heads generally get associated with the reports of the ones that we would class as type 2s. So that doesn't surprise me, because type 2s are all over the damn place. Type 1s are all over the damn place. So you could easily be running into either one of them. And from what I understand, the troops don't like war with each other, but they don't like interbreed and share territory either.
Yeah.
So, it's total, total just luck of the draw as to what you're going to run into when you're out there.
Yeah. Well, you don't go across the river. You don't go to the Montana side of the river. You stay on the Idaho side, because they look the same, but they are not at all the same temperament-wise.
Yeah. And again, we mentioned that last time, that the ones over here have a stinky reputation, and it goes way, way back. And they're crabby over here for some reason. But apparently they're crabby in northern Idaho too, judging by the last guest that I had on here.
Yeah, I heard that one also. Now, can you hear me all right tonight? I realized what I was doing last time, fidgeting around.
I can hear you just
nervous.
Fine. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You got to remember, this stuff is the first time I've ever talked about it, ever. Mm-hmm. And
as far as the skin color goes, what we were just talking about, most of the sightings that I get from the more northerly areas report that skin color. I don't hear a lot of people talking about brown-skinned ones up in the further northern areas. They seem to be black or gray.
Okay, that I didn't know. Well, like I told you, the only person anywhere around where I grew up was considered the town drunk, and he didn't tell a lot. After that initial, running into the hospital and saying Bigfoot pushed a tree over on him, but he didn't talk about what it looked like. Yep. And then
you never got that detail out of what its skin color was or anything.
No.
But this was again the ones that were over on the other side of the valley, closer to Montana. Where the closer to Montana you get, the crappier they are.
Yep. There's no pumpkins in Idaho, so I guess they're pretty ticked.
Oh man. I need to move out of the banana belt over here. Well, anyway, so he had this sort of the dark-colored hair. He had a darker gray-colored skin. His eyes, from what you can remember, were just really, really dark. And
yes.
the first one that I saw in the daylight, that's what its eyes looked like to me. I couldn't make out any detail at all. It just looked like black. It was shiny black. That was it. So, not surprised by that, but just that, and repeated times of seeing them or anything, if there was like very much in the way of color in them or something, it seems like you would have noticed it at some point.
Yeah. Now, that's something that I didn't really consider. It's just one day, this is on down the line, just jumping ahead, just a tiny bit. I just realized that, holy cow, he doesn't look anything the same way he did when I first saw him. When I realized, holy crap, he's huge. But that's a couple years down the line. But we'll get into that later. But when that realization finally came to me. But so you just want, every time I went to the mountains, it was an awesome experience for me. But, that first year, the hunting season was tricky, for the rest of the whole mix of that year up until the hunting season was actually pretty fun. That's where we're just learning how to be friends and how to communicate and how to, does that make sense? How to be friends with.
Sure. So how did you do that? What kind of experiences did you guys have during that time?
Well, how I told you, they have a very visual sense of humor. In the spring when I'd been up there, one of the times I was up there 3 or 4 days straight, and I started getting stinky, which is something I'll get into also. But I took a bath in the creek, and he laughed his butt off when he saw me naked, because I was naked, and that was probably a day and a half of him. From then on, he'd lift up my shirt and laugh. And that's when, that spring is when I was like, holy cow, your feet are big, because I pulled my boots off and put my size 12 and a half next to his, probably size 16. And it's like, and then that was funny too, because my foot was so small and it was pink and tiny and no hair all over it. That just cracked him up. But then the words and, oh, mercy. It just, there's so much that, just learning how to communicate with each other. But it's kind of hard to explain. There was a connection since that very first, that first weekend that I was up there when all of that initial stuff happened. From then on, we were best friends. And it's
how often were you up there visiting with them? Like every week, every month?
It was as long as every chance that I got. It never more than a week or two in between, even if it was just I went up for an afternoon. And usually I try to go up for a little bit longer than that, when I couldn't, at least maybe just a night. But in the beginning and middle of summer, in between working and everything else, every second that I could. And, like I said, it was a different time, a different era. And, as a kid, we didn't have any of the stuff that the kids in a big city are used to. And so if you haven't been raised in that, it might sound far-fetched that a 15, 16-year-old kid would hop on a motorcycle and go to the mountains for a day and a half. Well, if that's where you grow up, it was nothing strange about it to me or anybody else. In the valley.
When I was a kid, it was the same thing. I was up in northern Minnesota. My nearest friend lived 3 miles away. My nearest good friend lived 5 miles away. And all I had around me was a whole lot of woods and nothing else. So guess what I did all the time? I was out in the woods. There wasn't really anything else to do.
Now, to us, driving up and down the street in a loop, in a big circle, driving up and down Main Street, that's kind of foreign to me. Mm-hmm. Or, the kids that went cruising or going and sitting in a parking lot at a like a McDonald's or something, and everybody sitting around talking. That didn't happen there. You know what I mean? It's different era, different time, different place. Yeah. The people that haven't been raised in that, it might sound totally foreign or even far-fetched, but the stuff that city kids do seems far-fetched to me. But
that's something so I'm right there with you, brother.
That's something that I mentioned was every time that I made when I would come back to town and I would, would sit when I would be back there, never was he not there. I mean, that's what I mean about the intelligence. When I told him I'd be back in 5 days or 3 days or 18 days, he was there waiting. Before I even got there, he was there at the spot that we always met at. And, that still to this day blows me away. That how can it be an ape or just some animal when you can schedule a time and he understands it and meets you there every single time. It's more punctual than most humans.
Yeah, it's pretty abstract, too. I mean, obviously he's smart. He figured that out right away. You had that one the first time you met with him.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah. So is that like how you went about trying to get things that you could use for operating purposes to, like, communicate with them, like try and teach him words in English and show him a little picture on the ground or a picture from a book?
Yep, and like I told you before, I took a lot of photographs up there, and it wasn't very long of looking at it until he finally understood that, okay, this photograph, that's hard to explain, but it wasn't very long till he understood that he's looking at a picture of something that's real, even though it's not real in front of him.
Yeah.
And that's how I would, try to communicate with, it's like I told you tried to show him a picture and a recording, the old cassette recorder of my other bike. But when I came up on that bike, he didn't come around. I mean, he wasn't waiting. And I thought it was more the sound of my old bike. And that's when it gave up the ghost. I had to do my best to rebuild it.
So when you came up with a different one, he didn't recognize the sound, so he didn't show up. Well, at least he was cautious. That's a good sign.
Yeah, well, and that all plays into how I explain and not to trust people. Yeah, I'm a people, but...
How the hell did you do that? Well, wait, you're going ahead of things. Let's go back to the first year here now.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And work your way up to all that.
Well, the first, 10, 15 times, it was just going up there and playing with a friend. I mean, we were both kids, and I took...
So what kind of playing did you do? How do they play?
I took a baseball the first time, or softball, and no, that's like him trying to play catch with a grape. But he liked...
Yeah, but he's got a catcher's mitt. It shouldn't be that tough.
Yeah, it's just trying to find it and pick it back up out of that catcher's mitt and throw it back. I'll keep everything in the first year, but the chronological order of the stuff in that first year might get a little mixed up tonight, but it's all going to be in that first year. But I took up a blanket because, I get cold, and down where we had set him up to where, in that small cave, and that's something that the human side of me. But actually, I took a whole bunch of that. It was eventually, like the cherry ball that you have in school that for dodgeball or for kickball and stuff, that's actually the ball that we'd play with, actually just kicking it around, kind of playing Sasquatch soccer. Because catch with one of those isn't, once you try to catch it, it bounces all over. But just kicking it around and rolling around and up there.
Chasing after it. Yeah, it's almost indestructible.
Yep, bouncing it off a tree and playing keep away. Now that's when we played hide and seek. That concept was long and hard trying to get across, but when you go hide, you come find me, or I'll try to come find you, but don't stay hidden so long that I can't ever find you.
Yeah, I would have been real careful about trying to get that idea across before I ever tried it.
But, the ready or not, here I come, and every kid cheats, looks under their armpit and try to find where they're going, and I could watch where he run to, which you have no idea how quick you would get from point A to point B. That took a long time to, come to grips with, that there's no way that I'm ever going to outrun him in a foot race, so we didn't try to race. But watching him go off a little bit further deep in the trees, and when he'd go behind the tree, I could go back, and you should be able to see him hanging out the other side of the tree, and he's gone, just disappeared. But I'm not saying anything supernatural about it. It's just the ability that he had to blend into the environment and stand so still that, it's just like he disappeared.
Yeah.
Like he cloaked, but I know he's not. He didn't. I'm not saying that there's some out there that can't. I'm just saying I never saw it. It's just.
Well, as time went on, did you get better at finding him? Or was he always like a super, super successful and completely eluding you?
I can't remember any time that I actually won.
How good was he at finding you? I suppose that wasn't too tough.
Well, I don't think he ever lost. If I never won, it didn't matter what I could go up. Find a tree that I could go up and go way up, and I tried down to a bunch of branches and stuff one time for the next time we played. I even planned ahead, and pine needles and stuff. And when I ran and hid, I buried myself under pine boughs and dry needles and everything. And 30 seconds after I stopped and just laid as still as I could, he'd come up and found me.
I think he's cheating. He was probably using his sense of smell.
Yeah, more than likely. And it was always scary too, because in a good way, because he'd always roar with, I found you type of thing, not like in anger, but that
still plenty loud, no doubt.
Yeah, well, and it's as the months and years went by, that roar got that laugh that sounded less and less like a laugh and more like a roar, even though I still knew it was a laugh. But as his voice was getting deeper, which it was a bass drum as it was when he was little, and it just got deeper and deeper. And man, just when he'd laugh, you could feel it, not just you know what I mean. You could, when he'd laugh, and it'd vibrate your insides. Just the power that they have just in their lung capacity. It just, man.
I'm just trying to imagine you playing hide and seek with the Sasquatch when I was a kid. I know I'd be able to whoop ass on all the normal kids after that. They wouldn't have a chance.
One thing I noticed was people were asking about smell.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you, the smell that I smelled was like when your dog's been out playing with you all day, not like a wet dog smell, just an animal that needs to take a bath. And that's something that's where my human side come across, and it's like, GLAGG, how are you ever going to get a woman when you smell like that? And that when he watched me, bathe in the creek, I didn't use soap and shampoo or nothing, but I got in there and I used some of the red moss that, grows in the rivers and creeks around there. Actually, if you pull it out, it's super great, but still it has a pleasant aroma, the right stuff. Not that there's some of it that smells like swamp water, but if it's the moss that grows in the quick moving streams and stuff, it's not too bad. And I'd rub that under my armpits, and he'd get in the water and play with me. And I think that might have been, that's where the human side of me, man, you need to take a bath. But it was never anything. It was never anything like, the people report.
The horrifying
smelling like,
yeah.
Yes, that I never smelled that yet. That for another night though. But the thing about it, it's just all that little stuff, and there's so much of it. I mean, if you want to help ask a question and point in the direction, but it's just, I took a ball up there. I took a brush.
So what ended up happening to the ball? Did it get popped, or did you guys just lose interest?
Yeah, I went through a whole bunch of them. Yeah, a whole bunch. But
so, where were they going? Was he like playing with them when you were gone, and then things would happen to him? Or?
Yeah, I think once he just wanted to see what had happened if he squoze it too much, because when I came back, it was blown out. Just had the big rip on it, like an elephant sat on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one time that was like playing, not really kickball, not really soccer, where we're just in this kind of little meadow, not really meadow, just a open patch in the trees, and we'd just kicking the ball back and forth, and he stepped on it and goes kaboom. And blew it up.
Did it surprise him pretty good when that happened?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
I love to see the expression on his face. I bet his eyes got big.
Yeah, that was the thing that always was, when he'd get surprised, the reaction, when he'd get, that surprise reaction, I could tell that, holy cow, that could be, how would I put it? I'm glad he's my friend.
Yeah.
Nothing ever really, bad happened. It's just that seeing go from, happy GLAGG playing and having fun to instantly getting scared, and that for that minute or, for that few seconds of that, when he's scared, it's like, man, the whole atmosphere changes and everything. And then it'd take him a little bit to get back into play mode, but as soon as he saw that it wasn't, anything to actually be afraid of, but that was always tense, because, man, it's just, there's no way to explain it. He's so big. There's no way to explain how fast they move, how quick, and just all of that. And when you see something like that, and you see that instant to where it's just the reaction to being scared, it just everything switch off and go to that real quick. It just it was a little bit freaky at times.
Mm-hmm.
But that I'd take like kids' storybooks. I had a little kids' storybooks that I'd take up there, and I'd read around the campfire, and he loved me to read to him, which was, I don't know, it was just cool. I would, I think it was the Dr. Seuss books, how Dr. Seuss had how it rhymes, and
words rhyme. Yeah,
he loved that, just listening to it. And I told you we communicated. It was more with watching each other and know what the other one is thinking or wanting. But there's a lot of the words that he had that fire. He loved fire. He'd always get excited when it was time to build a fire. And then, that's a pretty cool story. That's when he wanted to learn how to light a fire.
Were you making fires all the time you were going up there and visiting one?
Not all the time. Not all the time. There was only when it was for sure that there wasn't anybody around, or it was going to be how do you know that? But on the days that when it was socked in, and you're not going to see a stream of smoke, and
because when the side's too close, you couldn't see smoke over the next hill anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's the times. No, the fire wasn't always, but yeah. Well, and late at night, or early morning, and it was a small one. When
right.
But he was always excited about fire, always, and wanted to learn. Because I had a lighter, and I'd always see that. You wanted to try that, and that wasn't working. There's no way. Even if I would have had a Zippo, it was just a Bic back then. But that when your thumb's bigger than the whole lighter, it's kind of difficult to work it. And there's one trip I took a flint and steel. Just the little fire starter, not really with magnesium, and in the strikers where you shave off magnesium, and showed him how to do that, and it took forever. But the sparks, when you hit the striker, and the sparks just tickling to death, and there's try to imagine Andre the Giant trying to take two toothpicks and strike them together and make sparks. It didn't work very good, but he always wanted to try. But like I told you, whenever he'd get excited and what words he did say, he'd start saying them real fast, and it's like fire, 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 fire. Me do it, me do it, me do it, me do it, me do it.
You must have felt like you were there with Beavis.
I always wanted to, to show him stuff like that, like a TV. And
well, what I was just thinking of is after you're reading him these kids books, and he really likes the Dr. Seuss one. I wonder if he memorized any of it. It'd be pretty hilarious hearing a Bigfoot reciting some Dr. Seuss on the woods. You would know if you should be horrified and run away, or if you should just be completely freaked out and wonder what was going on.
Yeah. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
Yeah, right. I do not like good eggs and ham.
Yeah, I do not like them, Jim. I am.
I can see how he'd be interested in something like that, though, because it's so rhythmic and the words rhyme and everything.
Yeah.
And, some of them are nonsense words, and they're made up just so they do rhyme.
Yep. Is it there's as or does?
So did he get very exasperated when he couldn't get the fire thing to work? I mean, I've heard they have fits like little kids sometimes when they can't get things to work, and they get kind of exasperated with it.
And that's where me and him being together for so long, from being so little to where, me saying, okay, just let me do it. You always say, your hands are too big. Your hands are too big.
Yeah.
Okay. But as always, whenever he'd get frustrated at something like that, just, the calm tone and tell him, okay, it's all right. I'll do it. We can try again next time. But I would always recognize that fit coming on beforehand and try to nip it in the bud.
Mm-hmm.
And then him just being excited that now that the fire's going was usually enough that, it'd calm down. But he always wanted to try. That's what was kind of cool about it. But the frustration on something like that did come pretty quick.
Yeah. That would be kind of really dangerous to be around, too.
Yeah.
To lose your temper.
That's how I was trying kind of getting at is, man, seeing that, that's what I meant by I'm glad we were friends, that he would recognize, from early on that he was a lot stronger than me.
Yeah.
That was because there's times that we were playing and, it hurt me not intentionally, and, then he'd feel bad, but that's kind of a good thing from early on is he, understood that he was way stronger than me. I mean,
yeah.
And I wasn't a wuss neither. I was pretty tough as a kid, but
even tough kids are total wimps compared to a Sasquatch.
That strongest guy in the world is a wimp to a young Sasquatch.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, there's no comparison. You can have the guy that can bench press, the most weight of any human being, and your average, young teenager Sasquatch is going to be 4 to 5 times stronger than him.
Yeah.
That just the strength that's unfathomable how strong they are. And that's why.
And fast. See, and there's two things that people should keep in mind. It's not just that they're big. It's not just that they're strong. They're also fast. They don't move slow and lumber like big elephants. And when they run fast, they don't have to make very much noise doing it.
They lightning, I don't think is as fast as they are. When they're in a hurry, you could be watching them run, have your eyes on him, and if he is in a hurry, you're not even going to see it. I mean, I think you can move faster, at top speed than you're going to be able to. Your mind's going to be able to process, which is.
I got another question for you. You got to chase the ball around and kick ball and stuff like that with him a bunch of times. What kind of a posture did he run around in? Was he bipedal all the time?
The first year, it was a lot of both. When he would take off and want to outrun me, if the ball rolled farther away, he'd go down on all fours and just book it. But when we were playing like that, it'd be standing up. But when he'd cheat, he'd go down to all fours.
Okay, so at least he knew that was cheating. Hey, you're playing against a human. We don't do that. That's cheating. Come on, man. And that's kind of funny you said that, because I brought that all up a lot. It's like, no, that's cheating. You're faster than me as it is. You can't go to where it's even faster. In a 100-yard dash, give me a 95-yard head start, and on all fours, he'd beat me. Well, you didn't have multiple ones to watch them between themselves, but Taylor tells me when he gets to watch other, variety of them interacting. They're all very competitive, and they like to have contests with each other.
Yeah.
For, like things that we would think like 5-year-olds or, 8-year-olds would be like, oh, I can climb that tree faster than you. No, I can climb that tree faster. And they actually do stuff like that.
Well,
all
it's
the
like
time. They're competitive about everything.
Well, he did like to win, like when we were playing, and even though there's not like a goal or anything, when the ball would go rolling, he wanted, I don't think there was many times that I ever got to it before he did, but he liked, winning, that's definitely, but who doesn't like to win? Now,
so let's jump forward for just a second here, as you were alluding to there. The first year he was running around a lot on all fours. No. After that, so he wasn't running around on all fours as much? Did he sort of switch to being bipedal all the time, or was it just because, you weren't playing kickball with him?
Well, it's from what I saw when he was with me, I think it's because I was always walking around like that. He did. And as he got older, it was, as he started getting bigger, I didn't see him go down to all fours very much after the first probably year and a half or so, and just how big he is getting and how quick. I swear he was getting bigger every month. He was bigger, but also, like I told you, I fed him very well. I always made sure he was well fed, and I don't know if that's if it would have been just his troop in the wild, if they would have got as much as he got, because I was helping provide it for him, but almost every time I went up, I got him another animal.
So he was eating a damn good diet, probably easily as good as he would have had if he was with the troop. You were definitely giving him enough food to eat. Well, and, and that's like with any other animal or human or anything like that. If you give them a good diet, they'll just naturally grow to be bigger than they were already probably going to be. And in a Bigfoot's case, that could be pretty damn big. And, again, just because they're shaped like us doesn't mean that they're going to grow like us, and already being predestined to be probably twice as tall and way more massive than a human. You would expect that they would grow that much faster and they would need that much more food. Can you imagine what it's like being a Sasquatch parent? It's probably they only have one kid or two kids at a time because it'd be too tough to feed them otherwise.
Exactly. Well, man, and when I'd cook, deer in one sitting, you could put away, and I'd never, something that I noticed somebody in a comment, it was never, I was never trophy hunting. I was strictly, for food, and it was the first one that I saw. Tried to make sure it wasn't a wet doe, but, I wasn't out. I never hunted for a trophy. I always, my whole life, it was to provide food, always, even when it was, when we went hunting, when it was with my family during hunting season, it was never for a rack. It was never to hang something on the wall. It was to put something in the freezer.
Right.
Just wanted to let that be known. Would never for anything other than sustenance. But, you know, if you got a 140, 150 pound deer, you know, with just hanging weight, you know,
Right.
half of it in one night was nothing. You know, here I'd have pretty good portion of a chunk, but what he would consume was, you know, what I would consume in 6 months by myself. You know, of the 140 pounds hanging, you know, what is it? Right around half of it bone, but you know, the meat, that always impressed me how much it could put away and then be hungry again the next day or 2 days later. You know, if I imagine if I had enough food that we could eat 24/7, at a, you know, all you can eat Chinese buffet, he's going to bust their average.
Yeah, Titanic eater. So how much do you think, from what you can remember from the first time that you met him and fed him, until about a year later, how much bigger did he get?
He was probably 6 to 8 inches taller in that first year, and probably about 200 more pounds.
Wow, that's
another one of me, weight-wise back then, and I was getting bigger too. And I was growing fast when I was a kid, but you know, it was a drop in the bucket to what he grew.
Right.
And
wow,
that's another thing is, you know, at night when we'd cuddle up as buddies, you know, like when we'd sleep, you know, on the blanket that I took up, I actually wound up taking up another blanket and some yarn and sewing a couple of old wool moving blankets, you know, sewing a couple of them together.
Taking a box size one.
Yep. And, you know, when I'd sleep, would lay down on that down there in the cave and cuddle up together. Not like spooning, but, you know, just don't want it to sound weird, but, you know,
no, you're taking a nap with a Bigfoot. It doesn't sound weird at all.
When you say it like that, see, like I said, it's not. I didn't think about any of that. You know, he was just my buddy, and tuckered out. But that's when I think when I went to sleep, he didn't. You know, I think that when I was up there at night, it's when he is on alert, just in case. Yeah. I got that impression early on that actually when I went to sleep that he was on guard. And in the daytime, that's when, you know, there was more than once that, you know, you can hear a motorcycle or a four-wheeler or, well, back then it was a three-wheeler, or a truck or something, and horses. There's a few times that, you know, humans came close, and there's a fish and game officer come up to where I was camped and making sure that he got out of there and stayed out of sight, which all he had to do is run off into the trees. But that was...
That's interesting. Did you teach him to stay away from the fish and game officers, too?
Yes, I did.
Especially stay away from those guys.
Well, it was uniforms, and that's one thing that I took pictures up of. Is, you know, the fish and game coloring book that the kids get that shows the fish and game officer and you know, pictures of the police officers and Forest Service and you know, it's especially these people stay away from. And then, you know, the pictures of the rifles and, you know, what happened there. And, you know, just those are, you know, what hurt your mom and dad. But
how did you actually get him to understand that initially, that, like, he could be your friend and be safe with you, but he couldn't trust other humans? I mean, that must be really hard to get across. I
don't know. It was meant to be is the only thing I can think. But that gets into, I'm not exactly sure if it was within the first year or not, but I told you there was one time that I took off and two of my brothers followed me. I didn't know they were following me, but they were on their bike. They wanted to, I would always get asked what I was doing, and it's like getting away from you guys. It's going up there so I don't have to be around you guys. And one time they followed me, and where I got off of the main mountain road and hopped on and, took off on the deer trails, I lost them for a little bit, but, even though they're not as good as I was, I think, but they know enough about tracking and watching for sign that they actually finally figured out where I was and came to where, that meadow that had that very first one, it had my 2 tree stands, the one on the uphill side on the one side and the downhill side on the other side of the meadow. That's right where we were at, and they showed up probably about 20 minutes after I pulled up there, and I heard bikes coming and, told him to hide. And when they showed up, they're asking me, what are you doing here? And it's like, well, what do you think I'm doing here? Getting stuff set up for this coming hunting season. Staying away from you. What are you doing following me? I didn't want you to be around you, that type of stuff. And what was, I think I told you about this, the situation was kind of weird and, touchy just from my standpoint, because after they got there and we were talking, and I don't know what it was that he recognized, whether it was scent or what, but he got excited and started to come out and show himself in front of my brothers. And I freaked out and stopped, did kind of hand signals like, when I tell him to hide, and I, do the motion to stay away. And he started coming out and kind of got excited. And there was noise off over in the trees. And my brothers are like, what's that? And I'm like, stay back. And it's like, well, that's why I have my tree stands here, because the deer come up from the river all the time. You guys being so loud, you probably ruined my hunting spot for this year, because you just now spooked the ones that were over there in the trees. But I always wondered, now, got excited like he recognized that was family to me. I think. That I couldn't talk like me and you were talking, but when they showed up and I started talking to him, it's kind of I could tell that he was excited, and he started to come out from where he was hiding at, and I was the one that was like, no, stop, go back. And my brothers are like, what are you doing? And it's like, I get enough of you guys at home, trying to cover up what I was doing, trying to get him to stay hidden. And then that was, being harassed by my brothers for the next hour until they finally got bored with harassing me there, and then took off again. And then for the next couple of times that I was up there trying to, even though, yes, that's my brothers, you don't want even them, you can't trust them. And that it was then when he understood that I was different, I think, is that time, because I was afraid, not him, I was afraid that to let my brothers see him. And that was extremely, I guess, troubling and hard for him to understand, because it's my family. Shouldn't they be family to him too? He's my brother. But now I'm the one that's scared because my brothers are there. And that right there is when I think it finally all clicked that you can't trust most humans. Yes, there is some that you can. Obviously, I'm here, but it was the fact that I was terrified that my brothers were there and were going to see him. It when that finally hit home to him that I didn't even trust my brothers with him. And I still feel that same way right now, that it had it to do over again, I would still act the same way. I wouldn't let my brothers know that he was there. That's, to me, that's troubling that us as humans are like that. Most of them are so, in that situation that they do want to, they do stay hidden, that they know how humans are. And that was another thing, is how they were harassing me and picking on me there was ticking him off also. And I think seeing how they were, that whole hour that they were there, it was a huge eye-opening or an awakening for him. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he got a chance to observe and see how you interact with your brothers, and that they weren't nice to you. And that's
Yep.
why you were out in the woods a lot, probably.
Yep. And I didn't want, all of that combined, is that whole thing, then that was hard for him to come to grips with. It was confusing to him. But, this is family, and you don't even want family to see me. That actually made the bond between me and him even stronger, though, because of that. However, whatever it was that he saw and however it was perceived, but after that, it was even closer between me and him. And as odd as that may sound to some people, but that strengthened the friendship that me and him had.
Well, maybe you sort of got the feeling that in a way you were kind of an orphan too, even though you had a family, you couldn't really interact with them and you weren't close with them.
Exactly. But enough of the down part of it. That another kind of funny thing was hairbrush. When I first tried to brush his hair, I started to say that earlier. I don't know why that popped in right there, or why I didn't say it earlier. But if you ever get the opportunity, make sure it's one of the really big hairbrushes that have the bristles far apart and are like, super stiff, and plan on taking 3 days. They're worse than a sheepdog trying to brush out, or a collie or a German shepherd that's shedding their fall coat. Not that he was shedding, but they're trying to comb every square inch. Well, not every square inch, but
that was you have like all kinds of tangles and snarls and burrs and all kinds of crap.
Yep, and knots and giggles when it tickles.
Oh, that had to be fun.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I said.
Brush the Bigfoot. Oh, he's giggling again.
Is there anything else that? And
well, so now by the end of your first year, let's move it that far forward here. I think you could probably cover most of the stuff. It's going into the fall again. You're back in school. Did he understand a lot of English by then? How were you actually communicating at that point?
There was a lot that he did, and it was words and then more actions. But yeah, he did understand a lot of words. When I would say town or school, work, stuff like that, he understood. And buddy, he said buddy. All the time he called me buddy. I called him buddy. I'm still in that habit because of that I call, like when I send you a message, all right, buddy. That's the reason why I still to this day call everybody buddy. But it was after, when my brothers followed me up, that's when I realized I needed to move him farther from town. And that's when I started thinking about and working towards getting him deeper in, and in one of the units that isn't a draw unit like during hunting season. It's one of the units in the backcountry that they didn't draw in, and how to get him there and how to get to it, and knowing that it was going to take a while. It was after that time that my brothers come up that I started working on trying to get the point across that we needed to move and getting him farther away from town, farther away from people, because he was getting bigger, a lot bigger. And
did you spend a lot of time with him that summer during your summer vacation, or?
Yes, every spare second I had. Usually, at the very least, one day a week. Usually, at least. At the least one afternoon and on into evening, and then I'd get back into town late. But I tried to go up there at least for one night. Tried for two most of the time. But yeah, it was usually, I think there was only 1 or 2 weeks that, I didn't get a chance to go. And there was a couple of times that I had said that I was going to be there and I wasn't. And the next time that I went up, it would be, the same time that I said that I was going to be there the last weekend that I missed. So from the time that I missed, I would make it the exact amount of time as before. Does that make sense? So say I said I'd be there in 5 days, and then I missed that day. And from that time, I'd make it 5 more days. And it always worked out that when that happened, that worked out fine, because I think he thought the same way I was. So he missed this one. So 5 more days and he'll come up. And I never was able to make it the next day after the day that I had missed. And I don't know why I thought like that, but it's like, so I missed this day. So I told him 5 days, and the day that I missed, I would do it 5 more days from there. And I don't remember if that's something that I tried to talk about, or if it's just the way that it wound up happening, but it worked. Or it could have been, because I wasn't there, he was waiting for me every single day.
Yeah, you don't know because you weren't there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, before you moved further out into the backcountry, if he actually followed you back to town at some point sneakily and got a little peek around there at where you were living and who you were living with. I had wondered if he had come closer to town, but now, knowing what I know now, I wonder if he didn't come down into town at night and see, because there was, I can't say, but there was times that it's like, it feels like, somebody's outside, and then you go and check, and there's nothing there, but it's like, man, I could have swore that there was somebody. It just seemed like there's somebody outside, that feeling that you get. Yeah. And, I lived in town, but far enough on the outskirts of town that it wouldn't have been too difficult if he would have followed me down in and knew where I was. Because in knowing how far in town were you, like a couple blocks or?
From where the last house was, it'd probably be a half a mile. But the town I lived in, half of the town was in the foothills. Half of the town was starting up the mountain.
This isn't like one house right next to the other. As long as there's any kind of cover or something, they could sneak in easily.
It would have been easy if he would have followed me in. It would have been easy for him to dodge in and out of cover, especially as quick as they can move, and make it all the way from, the last, down out of the foothills down through town. He could have probably got there, just in a matter of a minute, darting in and out of, the cover between houses, or, from house to house, or trees to trees. Not any huge forest in town, but there would be enough cover, the creek bed, follow the creek, one of the 3 creeks through town. He'd be able to, move through there.
I've seen some of these little towns before too, and it's like they practically roll up the sidewalks when it gets dark. And, they're just, some of these towns don't have much of a nightlife. You go through there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's a ghost town. You don't see anybody. Yeah, the one stoplight starts flashing at 7 p.m. There you go.
Yeah. And there's only, the whole town was, there's only the police and criminals out after dark.
And Bigfoot.